This is episode 315 of Rogue State of Mind, formerly known as Mitolife Radio. I am Matt Blackburn, and I'm going to try to do Q&As more often, at least once a month, because I do these quite a bit on social media, or I have over the years, and people seem to get a lot out of it. Even though there's a lot of health educators out there that say there's no way to help people with general questions without knowing their backstory, where they've been, what environment they've been in, their history of diet and supplements and all of that. And while there's truth to that, there's also a good chance that somebody can take what I say and experiment with it, add in a new supplement, maybe change their mind on different supplements and how they utilize them, and experience miraculous results. And I'm also unique in the health world because I have the perspective that quick fixes are awesome. We like quick fixes because nobody likes being in discomfort and pain. And yes, there's lessons there. But once you learn the lesson, you're like, okay, I'm ready to move on. So there's people out there that say supplements are quick fixes and you're just treating symptoms. And yes, that's true. It is. Supplements are treating symptoms, but they're also taking care of the root cause. And I'm not making medical claims here with my supplements or supplements in general. But there's nothing morally wrong with acute, quick fix, reducing symptoms, reducing the pain, reducing the inflammation and the discomfort, while also slowly working on the long-term problem. It's like this all or nothing that I see, even in people that I've interviewed here on the show, and I follow them on social media, and I'm in total disagreement with how they talk about human health. And that segues perfectly to our first question from a listener. Could you talk about your business journey? How did you get to where you are today? Well, what I was just talking about, that's part of it. Part of my success in quote unquote business, and to me, making money is just a side effect of helping people. I was business partners with the guy that had that flipped where money was first. The plan to sell the business after you grow it, like Dave Asprey did with Bulletproof, is the number one priority. And that's where integrity really falls. And so my plan with Mitolife is to not grow it to sell it. My plan with Mitolife is to make it as effective and as affordable as possible while still making it sustainable for me to continue the business. And that's where I've arrived today with it, to where a lot of my supplements are more affordable than you could find at any health food store, especially when we run sales throughout the year. But a lot of my success in business is because I'm relentless in evolving my perspective and looking at all of these counter arguments that all of these people are making. Like I mentioned, that extremist view that you don't want to go for quick fixes and acute remedies and immediate relief, because that's not what healing is about. And that's like a religious belief that these certain health practitioners selling you group coaching programs or ebooks or whatever they're selling you their philosophy, even if they're not selling you supplements. And in the same breath, they're telling you not to buy supplements because you don't want to go that route. I'm telling you, you do want to go that route because it's way easier. Easy doesn't mean bad. Easy means effective and efficient. We want easy. We want grace in our journey. We don't want to grit our teeth and push through it because we have this religious belief that healing is in the pain. Whatever, if you want to play the mind games and go down that emotional mental route, that's cool. This channel, my information probably isn't for you. I'm physiology first I'm biochemistry first, and I'm supplements with nutrition. I've heard so many anecdotal stories, and more than heard, I've seen a couple families that I'm friends with here in North Idaho create what they call Mitolife babies, not to brand their children, but very healthy, bright-eyed children that are just radiating health. And they used a combination of raw milk and animal foods and all the basic stuff and getting them grounded and sunlight and all that good stuff in combination with the right supplements. And in this case, they were Mitolife supplements. And I'm very vocal about all this because there's so much nonsense and noise out there around supplements being anti-supplement, and they're not necessary. They're a waste of money. And it's really sad that that perspective is being shared because, again, I've seen supplements save lives and help people almost immediately. So do not listen to those people. Walk away from those people and listen to more sound and balanced advice. Doesn't have to be me, but someone that has a perspective that is inclusive of all of these different things, the circadian biology stuff, the sunlight, the grounding, but also supplements. So circling back on that question, I might have talked about it on the show in the past, but I'll give an elevator pitch as succinct as I can about my business journey and how I arrived to where I am today. Because I've had people reach out the last couple months that have companies in the health world asking me for advice on different things and how they could do things differently to be more financially successful. And I'm not a business coach. It's not what I focus on. I'm not like a Tai Lopez guy, but I do have the experience and I could talk about my experience. Basically, I started in my parents' garage, quite literally in my parents' bathroom, making YouTube videos on transdermal magnesium and coffee enemas and gua sha and all the things I was into back in my wild raw vegan days, where I was really heavy into rigorous, constant detoxification. And I'm still into constant detoxification, but I'm not as extreme with it as I was in the past, and I approach it differently. So this is usually how I tell people when I'm out in the field talking to people and they ask about my journey. I had an Ikido Sensei in high school. I trained in Aikido for a short time, and he was a really eccentric guy I'm still friends with, Michael Clark, and he introduced me to a documentary called Zeitgeist. And that's kind of the OG conspiratorial documentary that goes into the Federal Reserve and questions Abrahamic organized religions, all of them. And at this time, I was a pretty hardcore gamer because my older brother was a gamer. We had the first computers, the first Nintendo and Dreamcast and console systems, and then got into computer games very heavily. And that was great for my imagination. Got into RPGs, World of Warcraft, Diablo 2 were my two big ones. Star Wars Galaxies, for any nerds out there. Those were probably my three games. EVE Online a little bit. Getting really into the fantasy and futuristic stuff, which is kind of how I live my life in real life today. I'm definitely a futurist. I love science fiction and merging that with real life. I do think we're kind of headed for that future pretty quickly. But I was listening to George Norrie, Coast to Coast, and got into Project Camelot, which is whistleblower interviews talking about super soldier projects and remote viewing and psychics. I mean, this was back in 2006, 2007. And I did that up until the beginning of 2010 when I discovered green vegetable juicing, or raw food, raw veganism, and went from an unhealthy vegetarian for 4 or 5 years into a strict vegan and mostly raw vegan because the frustration mounted as I was sitting there for 10 hours a day eating junk food and staring at a screen, playing video games, which was great for my imagination. I do think there is a time and a place for video games. I think it's a great mental exercise. And again, I got that from my older brother, Eric, who's now also into board games, which I think is better because you're not staring at a screen and there's actual human interaction happening. But I arrived at this place of frustration where I was learning about all these things and how messed up the world is. And of course, at that time, I only understood 1% of the problem and what was going on. But I still wanted to do something about it. And I started to ask the question, well, what can I control? And it's my health. And I was eating goldfish and Triscuits and whatever these snack foods that people eat when they're video gaming. And obviously wasn't strength training or taking care of my body in any way, wasn't focusing on my drinking water. And all of that shifted immediately when I started watching YouTube. And I found Dan McDonald, the Life Regenerator. He's one of the old raw foodists out there that's still doing it. And I also found all of the other gurus of the time that were all over the place in their mentality with high carb, low fat, and low carb, high fat. Robert Cassar, he was at the liquidarian stage at that time. So I did liquidarianism, which was the most extreme, which was basically blue-green algae with chia seeds that I would brew myself, hibiscus tea, these liquids of vitality for people that know what I'm talking about, that have been around it for a while in the health field. And I tried all these different things. But while I was trying those, I was not just following people's program, I was merging it with my experience and just across the board with everything else that I knew. So what I mean is I was experimenting constantly with different supplements, even if that was outside of my current guru's sphere at the time of recommendation. And through that process, I was able to advance very quickly in my understanding of human health because I wasn't just jumping from guru to guru like people do nowadays with the Ray Peat stuff and they just get hooked in on everything he says is gospel. I've never, ever been that way. It's just not who I am. I'm always experimenting outside of the box. And I encourage you to do the same because it's a really dangerous place to be where you only follow one guy's perspective, whether it's Agnes von der Planets or Gabriel Cousins, which was one of the OG old raw vegan guys, or Dave Asprey, or whoever it is. People get in these really tight boxes and you can experience some benefits, but it's nowhere near the benefits that you would experience if you're more open-minded with it, more basically relaxed with how you approach it. I'm realizing that I'm going on and on. Could probably be its own show. But here we are. I'm trying out raw veganism and all these different ways of doing it for a couple years. And we get to 2012. And at that point, I'm bringing a cooler of raw goat milk that I collected myself from a homestead to a music festival. And I'm around a bunch of vegans and they all think I'm crazy. And with my shirt off, I'm actually getting my lean body mass up. I'm getting basically ripped without strength training whatsoever. And I'm just gaining muscle mass by essentially being vegetarian and consuming a lot of good quality cheese, raw goat cheese, and raw goat milk. And I just started to look a lot better. I started to think a lot more clearly. My memory improved. And that led me into eating muscle meat again, which I had not eaten for about 8 or 9 years because I went from a long vegetarian stint into raw veganism for 2 to 3 years, somewhere in there. And I went back and forth for a while. But the animal foods really lit up my brain and really just started to demolish my hardcore beliefs around eating animals. I had a lot of spiritual guilt around it and just surrendering to the natural cycles of life. I remember being at my friend's house and they were bodybuilders for years and they couldn't do a standing ab roll, from standing up with that ab roller exercise, nose to ground and back up. And I was so excited about eating muscle meat at that time that I brought grass-fed ground beef to their dinner party and cooked it on their stovetop. I think I just ate it with salt by itself. And my body was so malnourished that I ate the whole pound on my own in one sitting. And we're all standing there in the living room, and I do, without even training, without working out, I do a standing ab roll and pretty much hold it at the ground and come back up. And they're all just looking at me like, how did you do that? My cells were just so hungry for those amino acids that I probably didn't get my whole life, that they just soaked it up like a sponge and my muscles engorged and I was off to the races. But in the back of my mind, I always stayed aware of this balance between performance and longevity, because from 2010, when I started this whole natural health journey, my focus was anti-aging, radical lifespan extension, and not from a place of being afraid of death, but from a place of loving life and just a curiosity if it's even possible. And that's really where the supplements come in. Ever since then, I've been intensely researching the complex biochemistry of nutritional supplementation, macrominerals, trace minerals, water-soluble vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins. A lot of people focus in on these really specific compounds, whether it's sulforaphane or curcumin or coenzyme Q10 or ubiquinol or PQQ. A lot of these ingredients in biohacking supplements. And I've experimented with most of those, not sulforaphane. I've never taken that one, but all the rest I've experimented with really heavily. And unless, I say this often, unless you want to be taking 100 to 150 pills a day, then you really want to focus in on the important stuff. And to me, all of the specific compounds are secondary to the basics. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc. For certain people, lithium. For myself, lithium orotate is a game changer. If you have different things going on genetically with your dopamine, especially, it's a huge game changer. The most important isolated compounds, I would say, outside of vitamins and minerals, hands down, melatonin, which is not just a sleep hormone. Yes, it does improve sleep architecture at a really deep level, but it's a really powerful mitochondrial enhancer. It's an antiviral. It's an anti-aging compound. It protects from EMFs, does so many things rather than just improve your sleep. And so I take 200 milligrams of my melatonin supplement every night. It's 4 capsules of the 50 milligrams. And then I also sell a product called Encephalon, which that is another unique compound outside of the vitamin and mineral kingdom. It's a microalgae extract. I actually used to be an algitarian. I bought books on it. I was really passionate about algae and the health benefits of algae. We know astaxanthin, super popular supplement. I used to take it. I don't take it anymore. That carotenoid. A lesser known carotenoid, probably no one knows about almost, is Phyodactylum tricornitum. It's a mouthful. The trademark name is Brain Fit. That's grown in France. And if you want to check out the science of it, The website is Brain Fit. That's spelled PHYT.com. And you could check out their YouTube videos on it and read about the research. But it's essentially one of the components in it is Fukcoanthin, 2% Fukcoanthin, which is like astaxanthin, a marine carotenoid, but at a low dose, way lower than astaxanthin, actually, you can get a lot of profound benefits from anti-inflammatory benefits. There's research on it inhibiting cancer cell growth, improved blood sugar control, neuroprotection, protecting from bone loss and osteoporosis, protecting the liver, anti-obesity effects, reducing body fat and affecting lipid metabolism. Just a really interesting compound. And I actually used to take it years ago in brown seaweed extract. I would add that to my smoothies. But like I say often, I prefer capsule form of things. And if you have children, yes, you can open the capsules in their smoothies. I often tell mothers that on social media. Any of my products you can open up in smoothies, and that's a great way to provide your children with nutrition. But that's a really powerful compound, and I would put that second to melatonin. I take 4 a day of my own products, so I get 4.2 milligrams of Fukcoanthin, as well as ginkgo biloba and phosphatidylserine, which the choline form is often in these biohacking supplements, but I don't see the serine form too often. And instead of from soy, that's from sunflower. It costs me more to do that, but I always try to do the highest quality products. And in that algae extract, there's not just the Fukcoanthin, there's actually essential amino acids, which I supplement separately. There's magnesium and calcium and iron and essential minerals. There's these things called phycoprostanes. There's vitamin B3. There's antioxidant effects. There's just so many things about it that's really powerful. And I take it at night before I go to bed with my melatonin, because we have this cortisol curve, and at night our cortisol starts going down, and I like taking it to support that downward curve of the cortisol lowering, which ginkgo biloba lowers cortisol and phosphatidylserine lowers cortisol. And I would not be surprised if the Brain Fit ingredient also lowered cortisol. And my favorite effect of that is that it actually increases short and long-term memory. And we know the negative effects of cortisol on our memory. So it's really a great combination product to both lower your stress while improving short and long-term memory. I know I totally derailed from the original question, but that's part of the answer. My success in business, my business journey, how I got to where I am today, I'm passionate about it. You can hear it in my voice when I'm out in the street talking to people. If the conversation goes that direction and they open up and want to hear what I have to say, it sounds exactly the same as you're hearing now. And with business, that's where you want to be with whatever it is, whether you're selling shower curtain rings. I'm thinking of John Candy in the movie Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. But whatever you're selling, you have to be so passionate about it that you want to talk about it all the time. And that's really success. With a lot of these other people that I mentioned earlier that have the intent to sell their business from the start, they are not really interested in it. They're interested in sports. They're interested in other things that aren't related to what they're selling. And yeah, they might be successful, but at some point, the light will leave their eyes if they stay involved in it, because it's not what they want to be doing. And that's what happens to our soul when we're doing what we don't want to be doing. We start to lose our light, our electric charge, and people can see and they can hear that over time. So I think that's another reason people see that in me. They see that I'm living it. They see that I'm passionate about it. And yeah, over the years, I've waned, especially the last 2 years, which I've been open about, kind of got bored and lost my spark and stopped researching health as much and supplements, but I feel like I'm getting back into it. And that is a natural process where, they call it writer's block, happens with authors. And if it's what you're meant to be doing, then the spark will eventually come back. And I feel like this year it is for me. And what that means to me is that I'm connecting dots that no one else is. And I'm not tooting my own horn here or putting myself up on a pedestal. I'm just saying that I see things that other people can't, and I share that. And that is where the good information is. And that is a big part of my success. I'm all about practicality. And an example of that is safely drinking ethanol/alcohol, meaning tequila, gin, vodka. I would not recommend beer because that's horrible. And for people that have a history of addiction and alcoholism, I'm not speaking to you here, but people that can maintain a healthy relationship to it, I think there are health benefits. And the proven health benefits are lipofuscin reduction, because aging is a feature of lipofuscin accumulation. It's a hallmark of aging. And there's not many things that reduce lipofuscin accumulation. That glycated mess of proteins and lipids and damaged mitochondria that fill up the garbage recycling center of your cells called the lysosome and decrease autophagy. And this is the start of tissue degeneration and aging. Alcohol is one of the few things. Methylene blue is another. Vitamin E is another. And personally, I use them all. And another solo show I'll do soon, because I'm building a list in my brain because I'm having trouble finding unique guests that aren't well known. So I'm probably going to be doing solo shows minimum once a month, maybe twice a month from here on out. But I definitely plan on making a solo show on how to safely drink alcohol. And whether it's once a week or every day, there is a way to protect your liver from the acetaldehyde. And with the right combination of supplements, there's a way to protect your entire body from the negative effects of it. Those are the types of things that I like sharing, because I hear on one end Andrew Huberman or whoever talking about why you should never drink and there's no benefits to even small amounts of alcohol, which is just total nonsense, because there is, and it's called lipofuscin reduction. Another listener asked a similar question: how did you become so successful affording to create all of this? So if you guys aren't aware, if you're a new listener or you just don't follow me closely, I am renovating an underground bunker. I purchased over 100 acres and pretty much raw land except for some underground power line. And it's a huge project. It's a whole lot of money, paying a ton of people to do all sorts of stuff: plumbers, carpenters, electricians, dirt workers. It's a whole nother business expense for me besides running Mitolife. I essentially have two companies, so double the stress. But my ultimate goal here with this acreage is not only prepping and feeling really secure with whatever direction the world goes, I would like to host health trainings here, often called retreats, whatever you want to call it. I'd like to grow food, both plant and animal food. There's a lot of plans I have here, but I think the venue of the pyramid and the guest lodging that I'll have on the mountain would be perfect to have people fly in here to the Pacific Northwest, hang out for several days, and really just get that face-to-face. I don't go to health conferences anymore. They're just boring, and I don't really like networking with those people generally. And so being able to connect with my people that I resonate with, would be really fun. And doing that inside of my giant pyramid with the singing bowls and all of the things that I'm building here, it's very unique. And I don't think anyone will have anything close to what I'm creating here. I'm the first one in my family to buy their own house, let alone their whole mountain. I'm the first one in my family to start my own business. So I was not given money. I have been building with basically blood, sweat, and tears since 2010 at the beginning of that story that I shared with you. And it wasn't until about 7 to 8 years into my health journey that I considered having my own product line, thanks to my close friends, David and Will, that inspired me to do that over multiple late night cigar conversations down in Old Town, San Diego. And I almost lost it all when I partnered with the wrong person. But after a successful 4-month battle, I was able to walk away actually stronger than I was before and restart Mitolife with a much clearer message. And now I have an awesome team of guys helping me out. And it's just become this beautiful source for good where the intention is pure to help people improve their health, to help people improve their mitochondrial function. And as I mentioned earlier, to do it safely, affordably, and effectively. It actually still blows my mind. I'm up here in North Idaho and I'll be out and about running errands and strike up a conversation with somebody and they say, "Oh, what's your company name?" And then they end up saying, "Oh, my wife buys your products," or, "Oh, I buy your products. I know who you are," which is really nice. That definitely puts wind in my sails to know that my message is reaching far and wide. Most of my supplements are in biodegradable bottles that break down in the landfill in a few years versus 99% of the supplement brands out there that are just adding to the microplastics in the world. And then the fact that I use bamboo silica instead of regular silica or silicon dioxide, or worse, some companies use iron oxide or titanium dioxide. I'm using that to make the dosage precise. And it's also used for running the powders in high volume through machines. But it has the side benefit of, for me, it's annoying, my hair growing faster. I just had to get a haircut, nails growing faster. And I used to supplement liquid silica, not BioSil. It was a different brand that I'm actually looking to integrate into a new Mitolife product soon that I'll be talking about. But everything is growing faster, which as a male, it's kind of annoying, but a lot of females like that effect. And so you get that as a side benefit from all of the Mitolife products via bamboo silica. I also pride my supplements on being single ingredient for the most part. There's some that combine things, like I mentioned, the brain supplement with the ginkgo, phosphatidylserine. But for the most part, a lot of them, you just have magnesium by itself, or zinc by itself, or lithium, or melatonin. I'm not a fan of these blends because a lot of them are proprietary, which means they're hiding the amounts so that other companies can't copy them. But I think the real reason is to hide the active ingredients from you. So it's called pixie dusting. So there's a tiny amount of what you're looking for, and more of the cheaper ingredients, they have higher amounts, and then they could hide it under this word proprietary. I like educating the customers on the exact dosage, and there's less chance for negative effects. A lot of the anti-supplement people talk about genetic mutations that make people more sensitive to monoamine oxidase inhibitors and increased serotonin. So they say avoid even these natural supplements that are in these nootropic blends. And there's some truth to that. I think a lot of it's overblown to sell their own programs. But it is true that the more ingredients, like I remember taking the Qualia supplement, which I think contains 50 ingredients or something like that. And the serving size is 8 to 12 capsules or something crazy. And now there's other supplement companies out there making multi-mineral supplements and multivitamins all in one, where the serving size is 10 plus capsules at once, which is just insane because there are these antagonizing effects of taking all of your supplements together. And if you go on the Mitolife website and you click on Learn, click on FAQ, And then the first tab, you click, when should I take the products? We created a nice research-backed table for you there if you want to get really specific and get the most bang for your buck out of all of the Mitolife supplements. And it's categorized morning, afternoon, evening, and before bed on when to take all the supplements to make it just stupid simple. I do see people getting lost in the details, though. I don't really follow that table, to be honest, and I don't think it's a make or break thing. But if you are on a shoestring budget and every penny counts and you want to absorb the maximum possible amount of every Mitolife supplement that you take so that there is no chance of any antagonism taking two supplements together, then you can follow that table and that's available for you. I'm not aware of any other supplement brand that has anything like that on their website. And further, if you click on the second tab, it says, how should I take the products? And so there's with or without food, or take on an empty stomach as an option for all of the supplements. And then they're also categorized with complementary products that you can take with it. Like I said, if that's too detailed for you, it is for me. I don't really care if I'm not absorbing 100% of what I'm taking because I'm taking it daily. But those two tables are there for you if you want to check them out on the Mitolife website. All right, I'm going to try to do some rapid fire questions here. Top things to remineralize the body. She says she's a breastfeeding mom whose dental health is suffering. For many years, I've been talking about the benefits of vitamin K2. And this is a topic that's dear to my heart because I've actually chipped a tooth in the past during my raw vegan experimental days when I was drinking out of a glass carboy jug, because I only drank out of glass at that time. And I went a little too far bringing it up to my mouth to take a sip. And I just lightly tapped my front tooth and easily chipped it because my teeth were brittle, because I was deficient, because I was a vegan. So there's a lot of nutrients, not just calcium, in animal foods that helps support strong bones, and teeth are modified bones. And vitamin K2 is one of those important nutrients. I've heard a lot of anecdotal reports of Mitolife customers saying they reversed a cavity taking purely K, which is a blend of vitamin K1 and then two forms of K2, MK4 and MK7 form, in a fairly high dose, but also a safe dose, because with fat soluble vitamins, it is possible to cause an imbalance. There's a lot of people talking about vitamin D toxicity, a lot of people talking about vitamin A toxicity. No one that I'm aware of at this point talking about vitamin E or vitamin K2 toxicity. And the fact is, they all help protect from getting toxic in the other ones. So most people, even outside of studying natural health, are probably familiar with D3 K2 supplements because there's so many brands out there that combine them. And yes, K2 does help to protect from vitamin D toxicity, but vitamin A is also involved. And when it comes to getting, quote, vitamin A toxic, vitamin E protects from vitamin A toxicity. So they all protect each other from excess. But if you have a history of veganism and vegetarianism, like myself, if you're talking about a decade plus, a lot of people are several decades into that experiment, K2 deficiency is very common. And when you're deficient in that essential nutrient, calcium doesn't go where it's supposed to be. And that's not the only nutrient in the teeth. There's 12 plus, phosphorus is involved. I like fluoride being incorporated in there. I like fluoroapatite. There's magnesium and boron. and iron and zinc and potassium. And between raw dairy and muscle meat or fish or animal foods in general, oysters, organ meats, you're getting a lot of these nutrients. And that's why people tend to fall apart on a vegetarian, vegan, raw vegan program, is because they're supplementing the wrong things. They're focusing in on omega-3. I mean, the Mitolife lineup could almost save someone that's on one of those dietary experiments, but they tend to take all the wrong supplements. They're looking at these weird liposomal pump or pouch products that are just garbage, overpriced nonsense. When I was recovering from vegetarianism and veganism, I relied very heavily on magnesium and shilajit, almost primarily. And then when I added in the magnesium, a light bulb really went off in my brain. And combining all of those with raw goat milk and high quality animal foods, I really came back to life. And I was not a smart student. I have average IQ. I failed several classes in college, community college, when I was going there. And when I added in the right supplements and the right animal foods, I turned from a C student into a almost straight A student very quickly. So to answer that question directly, definitely supplement vitamin K2, definitely supplement shilajit. Of course, none of this is medical advice. If I was a breastfeeding mom, this is what I would do. Definitely supplement magnesium, because if you're stressed, you're arguing with your partner, you're in a stressful environment, you're in a relationship you shouldn't be in, or a place you shouldn't be in, or you just have stress that you cannot possibly get away from, then you definitely have to be very cognizant of your zinc and magnesium intake. And also vitamin C. Those would be my top 3 anti-stress nutrients if you're constantly inundated with stressors. Those 3 will help protect your system as their burn rate is higher. Then I would add in, as I mentioned, K2 and shilajit into that mix, and then have the foundation down of consuming enough dairy for not only your calcium, but your phosphorus and potassium, which raw dairy is a great source of that. Cheeses that you like, eat a lot of those. Of course, your muscle meats. I pretty much just cycle the same 3 things over and over again. I like grass-fed top sirloin steak. I like grass-fed ground beef and fish from Seatopia. And I'm very particular about the source of those 3. I tried a top sirloin from a big box store up here in North Idaho called Super One, which if you're from California, you might remember Vaughn's. I don't think those are still around, but it's basically a huge grocery store. And I thought, oh, grass-fed, it should be decent. And it was just half fat. And top sirloin is supposed to be lean. It was very gross. And this is partly why I never eat at other people's homes. I just bring a cigar and hang out, because people generally don't source very good meat. And I am very particular about it being very lean. With ground beef, it's a lot harder to tell, although I can taste the difference. But with steak, especially, I'm just very picky about that. And that might be part of it for some of you, because there's essential nutrients in fish and beef that when you add the Mitolife supplements to it, it just takes it to another level. But definitely try to find sources that you love, because for a lot of you guys listening, that might be part of the malnourishment, is you're just not eating an ideal source. And when I was working minimum wage jobs and driving taxi for Uber and Lyft, I still bought the top of the top, highest quality stuff I could find, because it made me smarter, it made me more creative, and it helped me make more money, because I thought of new ways to help people or new ways to support myself. And people have it backwards. They're buying lower quality stuff that's on sale, that's cheap. And sometimes that can work out, but generally you want to reverse it. You want to spend a premium on the top food so that you continually improve your brain function, so that you can basically reason your way out of whatever situation that you're stuck in. That's been my experience personally, many times throughout my life. I upped the nutrition, I dialed in the deficiencies, and I was able to figure out my problems and figure out solutions. Little wild card I'll throw in as the wrap up to that question is sodium fluoride, which is a very controversial topic, and I should have an entire show on why I defend it. But the long story short of it is there's a difference between drinking fluoride in your water in large quantities and using it topically in toothpaste. People will say, oh, well, Matt, you're still absorbing it on your teeth and gums. It's still getting into your system. If you're balanced, if you're supplementing the right things, if you're eating seafood and seaweeds and iodine is coming in, you really have no reason to worry about minuscule levels of fluoride coming in through your toothpaste. Now, I'm not recommending Crest. I use a brand called Saint, and they have a fluoridated and a non-fluoridated. I use their fluoridated one, and I'm not affiliated. I've just tried multiple fluoride toothpaste, and that's the one that I like the best. Try different ones. Some people freak out with the hydroxyapatite or the nano hydroxyapatite. They're scared with that nano word. Just find one that you like, but the evidence is crystal clear that fluoride forms a compound called fluoroapatite that is stronger than hydroxyapatite. And I say, why not use both, which is my answer for a lot of things. And I've experienced massive improvements in my dental health since using fluoride. And it provides long-term protection for the teeth. It's not just an acute benefit. It actually incorporates into the teeth and protects from acid attacks. So if you're like me and you enjoy coffee, you like espresso, I don't drink wine, but maybe you're a wine drinker. Maybe you smoke cigars like myself, and that is not good for the teeth and gums. Fluoride protects from that. Maybe you enjoy orange juice every day. That's very acidic. Maybe you enjoy soda, maybe Mexican Coke with cane sugar, phosphoric acid. Fluoride protects against that. So it's just one of those things that I use to help protect from all of the mitigations that I do in the modern world. I enjoy my dry gin. I like the Botanist product. It's my favorite for sure, combined with pineapple juice. And pineapple juice is corrosive, it's acidic, and fluoride protects from that. But I'm also getting good things with that pineapple juice, and it's helpful for protein digestion, and I'm getting sugar and calories, which I need all those I can get because I'm so busy and I tend to undereat with how busy I am. So animal foods, Mitolife supplements, a good fluoride toothpaste would be my recommendations to restore failing dental health. And some dentists or dental technicians might be out there and say, go in for a checkup, go in for a cleaning. And yes, that could definitely be a part of it. Definitely good to check if you have any cavities that are developing, although I do believe that they can be reversed. But you really have to find a dentist that you vibe with, where you don't have to be put under every time from the pain of them working on you. I've interviewed some dentists on the show, and some have said that it shouldn't hurt. And the good dentists will not inflict pain, which is why we avoid the dentist in the first place. Next question, what would your blood clot protocol be? Very simple, two things, systemic enzymes and vitamin E. Systemic enzymes in the form of nattokinase and serrapeptase, or serratiopeptidase, as it's called sometimes in the research. That is my Dissolve It All product. It's currently out of stock, but that will be back at some point here in May. If you follow on social media or the email list, you'll be notified when that's back in stock. That's something that I take daily, and that is a natural blood thinner. Doesn't excessively thin the blood, but that is amazing for so many things, not only increasing blood flow, but for increasing oxygen to the tissue, which goes hand in hand with increased blood flow. I don't think people realize how common fibrosis is, that spider web of scar tissue throughout the body. I think systemic enzymes are a must for everybody to supplement. And I don't say that about many supplements. Vitamin E, there's studies on venous thromboembolism, which is a fancy way of saying blood clots in the veins. There was a 2007 study on vitamin E supplements on the occurrence of that condition, and they found that it decreases the risk of VTE, abbreviated in the literature. It was actually a 49% reduction in women that previously had that condition. So vitamin E is also a natural blood thinner. I would look to mixed tocopherol form of vitamin E instead of tocotrienols, which are trendy, or instead of D-alpha tocopherol. You want to get gamma with it and beta and delta, basically the 4 isomers of the tocopherols together. You're going to get a much better effect, and it's a lot more balanced than just taking one of them. Some people say that everyone has blood like ketchup, that it's very sticky because of how much driving we do. We're ungrounded. We're in a lot of EMF, which makes the blood clump up. And things like systemic enzymes, vitamin E, grounding, either for real, barefoot on the earth, or with grounding shoes, or with the grounding sheet. These are all things that can help thin the blood and increase nutrient transport, nutrient uptake into the cell, and also detoxification and waste getting out of the system. This is going to be a quick question. Air filter that you like, that's portable. These are the ones I'm currently using in my cabin because there's no HVAC system. It's Air Oasis, and they actually don't have an affiliate program, and I've been promoting them for years, so I don't make a cent off talking about them. And a lot of people are making money off of Air Doctor because they send them free filters to promote. Air Oasis has never sent me anything, and yet I still talk about them because they're effective and they work. And they were recommended by a friend of mine, David Milburn, actually the first podcast guest that I ever had back in 2019. And he works with Hypoair, or Hypoallergenic Air, which is a sister company to Air Oasis. And if you have an HVAC system, it's better to go over there to hypoair.com and buy their bipolar ionization unit, which is just very simple technology. It's powered from different electric source, whether it's 12 or 24 volt or whatever it is. And it's a little brush, and you put it on the blower of your HVAC system. And when it's powered and air blows over it, it releases 2 different types of ions that actually sanitizes surfaces and deep cleans the air. So that's my plan, to put something like that in my bunker as I'm developing it. But if you're stuck with standalone filters, I would look at Air Oasis. I have their biggest unit, and really utilize your ceiling fans, because your standalone air filters are only as good as the air getting to them. So running your fans frequently will make your air filters way more effective. This is a common question. What's a Mitolife combination that is equivalent to a prenatal vitamin product? I would simplify it and say potency and the beef liver product, those combined. You can add Shilajit to the mix, which if I was a pregnant woman wanting to supplement the right things, I would add Shilajit in there, probably 3 tablets a day. I would be taking K2 and magnesium, probably a little bit of Rosita cod liver oil. As I mentioned, the beef liver, the oyster, which is now our new product called Potency, which is oyster plus green-lipped mussel, which is really powerful. I would add zinc to the list and a little bit of systemic enzymes, even if it's just one capsule a day. That's been shown to protect from pregnancy complications such as preeclampsia. And my friends that I mentioned up here that have created Mitolife babies, that's basically the protocol that they were on. And of course, in addition to high quality animal foods and vegetables and high quality produce, they had really healthy children. Here's another question. Can adult ADD, ADHD go away? Which supplements would you focus on? The main supplements I would focus on are zinc, magnesium, lithium, and Shilajit. And the first three that I mentioned have clear links with focus and attention, any neurodegenerative conditions. Shilajit does a lot of things. It's a source of a lot of trace minerals, a great source of fulvic and humic acid, which has profound effects to balance out a lot of the toxicity that we encounter every day. One of the less well-known being salt-based NPK fertilizer grown food, which we're pretty much eating every day. Shilajit helps remove inorganic minerals, pesticides, radioactive elements, many things. And when you combine it with zinc, magnesium, lithium, doesn't have to be at the exact same time, but in the same day and taken consistently, you can definitely see an improvement in your attention span, as well as your ability to memorize things. I've definitely noticed that personally since supplementing those things. Someone asks about tinnitus and any research with good results. I've seen zinc and magnesium linked to tinnitus. I would combine those two minerals and also Shilajit. So the magnesium forms that I sell with my brand, Mitolife, it's magnesium that's bound to the amino acid glycine and magnesium that's bound to the amino acid taurine. And then the zinc is bound to the amino acid L-carnosine. All three of those amino acids have incredible effects and very balancing effects for what we're dealing with today with modern toxicity. In particular, L-carnosine, which is bound to the zinc product, has great antioxidant effects, anti-glycation effects, its overall anti-aging effects. And that's why I chose that form of zinc. And it also has a profound effect on healing the gut lining. Now, I'm not making claims, but if you look in the literature on the benefits of zinc carnosine for peptic ulcers, there's several studies looking at that, showing that it's a safe mucoprotective agent. And it really helps to rebuild the gut. Of course, it's not a standalone. I would use it in combination with all the other stuff I've been talking about. But there's a huge gut connection with a lot of these issues. And a lot of the zinc products out there, you'll find these multi-blends where they're marketing it's 6 forms of zinc or 8 forms or several forms together. It's better to get just one form that works for you. I think everyone's gut's getting hammered. That's why I chose just one form of zinc. And if you supplement it daily, as I do with my Mitolife zinc, you're getting a constant drip, constant dose of L-carnosine. And your gastrointestinal tract loves that. You don't have to take large doses if you are consistent with L-carnosine every day. So one capsule of the Mitolife product, you're getting 16 milligrams of elemental zinc, which means actual zinc. And then what it's bound to, L-carnosine, you're getting roughly 75 milligrams, which is a small dose, but I take on average 4 capsules a day, which is more than a quarter of a gram of L-carnosine, which over weeks and months and years, that will add up. Listener asks, should we take glutathione daily? So the answer is it depends. If you are dealing with a chronic infection, I think it's a great idea. I don't think that taking N-acetylcysteine, the precursor, is enough. I think taking the actual molecule, and I like the transdermal one from Dr. Nayan Patel. That might be what the listener is referring to with that question. I interviewed the founder of RO Wellness, and they created a product called Glutaril, which is a stable transdermal glutathione that you keep in the refrigerator. I left mine out and it kind of fermented. So you want to keep it in the refrigerator. You get a little cold therapy when I spray it on my abdomen and let it soak in without a shirt on. And I haven't done it in a while, but it's definitely a great boost. And if like a viral infection's going around in your area, it's a great thing to add in. But just be aware that vitamin C is a cofactor for glutathione synthesis. It helps regenerate glutathione. Vitamin E helps maintain glutathione levels. Getting enough animal products in, which have methionine and cysteine, those two amino acids are sulfur-based amino acids, and those are used to make glutathione. Cruciferous vegetables, also sulfur-containing foods, garlic, onions, all that stuff's great. Even selenium in oyster and organ meats and fish. And sometimes all of that plus vitamin C and vitamin E could be enough. But if you are fighting something, you're healing from something, then it definitely can't hurt to add in a product like the Oro Wellness Glutaril. I like the Megadose, of course, the Glutaril Plus, and my discount is Blackburn if you want to try that out and save a little bit. It's something great to have even in just your first aid cabinet if you get injured or, as I said, if you're fighting an infection. But unless you're taking it for anti-aging benefits, I don't think it's necessary to take it daily. What are my thoughts on all of the ivermectin scares? People saying that it's contaminated now. I am out of the loop with that because I don't follow accounts that create fear, that are looking for clicks. I'm well aware of those types of people, and I usually just block them or stay away from them. The thing is, I would not go to that as a solution. I would go to all of the stuff that I've been talking about. I would wager that 90% of the people taking ivermectin have no clue how to properly take vitamin C. They think you have to high dose it. They think you have to get it all at once in an intravenous form. You have to take large doses all at once to get the effect. And it's actually the exact opposite. The proper way to take vitamin C / ascorbic acid, which are synonymous or the same thing, consistent low doses. So 2 grams, depending on the severity, every hour, maybe every 15 minutes, maybe every 30 minutes. And watch your bowels, and your bowel tolerance goes through the roof. It skyrockets depending on your stress level and also your viral load or what you're fighting. So basically, you're able to handle a whole lot without running to the toilet if you have a serious infection going on. But it's low and consistent, not megadose all at once. So I just throw out that one example of many that I could give of the ignorance of the people that are running to these cures that they've heard about on podcasts. A lot of them might be truther podcasts or, a doctor they heard on Alex Jones or something like that. Not saying that some of those solutions could be valid or useful, but it's usually sensationalist and they're usually missing the foundational pieces. Even methylene blue is something that I would look at, like from prescriptions, that's lab tested, that's proven to be clean, before going to something like ivermectin. Listener asks, what would you suggest to heal the liver? I first go to fat soluble vitamins. Amino acids can also be very helpful, in particular, the amino acids taurine and glycine. Fat soluble vitamins, they're stored in the liver. Vitamins A, D, E, and K. I think D gets highlighted way more than it should. E and K are the overlooked fat soluble vitamins. So I think most people can benefit from supplementing those two. Vitamin A you can get from liver, beef liver, either the real thing or encapsulated, or cod liver oil, whatever works for you. I started growing turnips in my growing dome, and those are a really unique food because they contain compounds called isothiocyanates and glucosinolates. Big words that protect from liver damage. They're hepatoprotective. And a lot of substances are hepatoprotective. The taurine and glycine amino acids that I mentioned earlier protect the liver. And you also want to take care of the free radical damage. Antioxidants often get a bad rap, or people overlook them or just simplify their effects. That's why I hammer home the benefits of vitamin C and E and how they work together. And when vitamin C donates an electron, vitamin E can regenerate it. So that's a great duo. And then you add in melatonin supplementation, another super antioxidant, and you have this amazing protective effect on the whole system, not just the liver. But those are some things just to throw out there that you might want to add in. So this next question will need some context. The gentleman asked, I go to sleep with white noise from my ventilation system. Do you recommend turning it off? So this is in response to a social media story that I posted on Instagram talking about the loud train. So before I set this prefab log cabin down on my new mountain, I did not consider nearby noise. Otherwise, I would have placed this cabin somewhere else, because the way the bedroom faces is huge if it's facing, say, a railroad crossing, which mine is. And especially if the railroad crossing is downhill, because it basically funnels up and the sound is essentially amplified. So that's what I've been dealing with. Poor sleep, a little bit of sleep deprivation here and there. And I actually found a solution. I was just researching, looking for something to keep me sane until I moved to the bunker. And I found this cool company called Soundproof Windows. And instead of switching out the whole thing, it essentially, say you have sliding windows like I have, or sliding glass door, which I have both in my bedroom. I essentially ordered another set of each that's thicker, that fits inside the frame. So essentially I'll have a double situation going with an air gap in between. And they show a 75 to 95% sound reduction. There's also energy savings and all these other benefits. And on their YouTube channel, they actually had a video of a train going by, blowing the horn, which I hear often, and just the vibration on the track and that noise. And it was so much quieter. So I'm about a month out, unfortunately, from getting that. I'll survive. I'll just use all the stuff that I'm fortunate to have here and take naps when I need to. Definitely keep my antioxidants up. That's great for sleep deprivation if anyone's dealing with that because they have a newborn or something. vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, lithium, shilajit, pretty much all the stuff that I always talk about. Zinc, a lot of these nutrients get depleted when you're stressed. And when you're sleep deprived, you are stressed. And so going back to this question, I posted a article on how noise pollution is linked to dementia. It was a study in the British Medical Journal, and it involved 2 million adults over a decade. And it concluded that people living in areas with road and rail traffic, like cars and trains, had a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease. Now, white noise machine, I know people use all sorts of noise machines and fans. That is much different from rail noise and car noise and sirens and alarms. If you sleep great with the fan or white noise going, I think that's completely fine. If you want to get crazy with it, you can get a Whoop band or an Oura ring and track your sleep and find out. Personally, I am so used to quiet. That's why I live very remote in the mountains, and I have for years, moving more and more remote. The quieter it is, the better I feel. So that's why I'm so excited. Hopefully by November, if everything goes smoothly, I should be moved inside the bunker, which is just a little further down my driveway on the same mountain. But it's a different side of the mountain on the opposite side away from the railroad track. So I'm excited to not only sleep underground, where it will already be insulated from sound, but just to be far away from the source of loud noises. And I think I trained my 2 cats, Lava and Lyra, to love silence as well, because this cabin is loud. I don't know if it's still settling. It probably will take months to fully settle, but these large creaks and cracks, and seems like someone's walking on the roof, and they'll just freeze and shoot their head up and look to the source of the sound and be freaked out. And I'm the same way. I prefer it dead silent. To a lot of people, that would drive them nuts. For me, I am obsessed with silence. It feels really good on my nervous system. And that's probably why I love sensory deprivation floating so much. Something else that I posted on social media recently was the oligoscan, which I've had 2 episodes on. A listener asks, can that spectrophotometry meter measure estrogen in the tissue? No, the oligoscan only looks at vitamins, minerals, and heavy metals. It does not look at hormones. And someone else asked if you can use the oligoscan on different parts of the body or on pets or animals. I don't see why you can't use it on animals, but if you use it on different parts of your body, like say your face, the readout should be pretty similar to measuring the tissue of the hand. But I'm not a total expert on that. I would definitely ask a oligoscan practitioner that's been doing it for a long time. I'm just a layperson that uses it on friends here in the area and on myself once a month. All right, next question. And by the way, side note, if my voice and inflection and tone sounds different, it's because I'm recording this at different times of day in segments, because I'm busy managing building out this 100 acres here and pouring concrete in my new shop tomorrow. And anyway, just a lot going on. And I wanted to make this show long enough, so I'm recording it in different segments. Anyway, back to the questions. My friend Stephanie, that lives in North Idaho near me, asks, how would you deal with MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome, sometimes called MCAD? Instead of syndrome, it's called disorder. And it's basically where these mast cells, which are like the sentinels of the immune system, the innate part of the immune system, they release molecules that influence other cells to maintain homeostasis. So histamine is a big one that's talked about, but there's also prostaglandins and leukotrienes, which are related to the whole PUFA discussion, which vitamin E helps with. There's tryptase. And what's often related to MCAS is diamine oxidase deficiency. I used to take that supplement, didn't really notice anything from it to help my sneeze attacks. I do have a product on my website, and this is more of a Band-Aid, but I like the dihydroquercetin from the company Arctic Chaga. I interviewed the owner of that company on my show. I would carry that product if I could, but it's imported from Russia, and I already import my Panacea Shilajit from Russia. And importing things are expensive from Russia, especially. So I'm not looking to take on another Russian project. So I promote his Arctic Chaga, the dihydroquercetin. That's been the only product that stops my sneeze attacks, which are becoming less and less as I'm supplementing zinc, which plays a big role in immune regulation. So there's that, the DAO enzyme, there's excessive histamine production, there's even mutations like HMNT, there's poor methylation in the liver, there's multiple factors involved there with the mast cell problem, and everybody has their own approach to it. The last year and a half, I've really been drawn to starting at the heavy metal level, which goes hand in hand with vitamin and mineral supplementation. So metals like mercury, aluminum have been shown to destabilize these mast cells, and also bismuth, which is less well known, cadmium, lead, activate mast cells and cause the mast cell mediator release to happen. So there's 5 metals, and there's almost 100% chance that you have an excess of at least one of those in your body. And if someone's dealing with MCAS, they probably have multiple. So getting a hair tissue mineral analysis test and or an oligo scan, going with whatever one that you resonate with, and more importantly, finding a practitioner that you resonate with to actually read the results, because you don't just test and interpret the results yourself. Well, you actually can't do that with the HTMA. You need to order it through the practitioner. Oligo scan, I just scanned my friends here in the area in North Idaho, and I was fortunate enough to get my hands on a unit a couple years ago before they stopped selling to lay people like myself and only sell to practitioners now with clinics and stuff like that. But the power is in the retest. That was my point. So testing once tells you almost nothing. It's a baseline. Testing the second time, whether hair tissue or oligo scan, tells you if what you're doing is working. Are you taking enough supplements? Are you taking the right ones? Are you taking the right ratios? All of that is revealed to you with the retest. And I've been testing myself once a month with the oligo scan. Basically, my metal protocol personally is high dose melatonin, which is a metal chelator. It's one of its hundreds of benefits. I'm on fairly high dose zinc. I average 60 milligrams a day. Sometimes it's 30, but usually 60 milligrams of zinc carnosine daily. It's my Mitolife product. Obviously, I'm on magnesium every single day. And I take Shilajit and high dose zeolite from Zeocharge. I'm on 30 grams a day or 6 scoops of zeolite. Combination of all that is a great heavy metal detox program, especially with the high dose zeolite. That is more of an anti-aging dose that I'll probably be on indefinitely. And that does actually bind to excess histamine, which histamine isn't evil. It's just because it's a signaling molecule and it has a neurotransmitter and stomach acid effect and all these other things. Histamine's important, but when there's too much of it, that's a problem. And this powdered zeolite from Zeocharge can actually bind to excess histamine, which is a really cool effect. And I think when you increase your mineral status, namely magnesium, zinc, which a lot of people are deficient in, get your metals down, which you have to do both basically at the same time, then you could see a resolution in a condition like mast cell activation syndrome. And there actually is research on zinc regulating mast cell function and a link with magnesium. And a lot of people talk about vitamin D maintaining mast cells, but you don't just want to start megadosing vitamin D willy-nilly. You want to make sure you know your magnesium status. First of all, you're probably deficient at the tissue level, and serum magnesium is useless, and even RBC magnesium, which practitioners say is better, is pretty useless. There's a lot of these blood tests don't tell you much. That's why I like the HTMA and the oligo scan, because a blood test isn't going to tell you what's in the tissue. It's looking at the snapshot of what's in your circulation, which Jeff Hoyt calls level 1, which is your blood. You want to look deeper, which the oligo scan looks at with spectrophotometry in the tissue. And that's where you could really see tissue levels of vitamin D, tissue levels of zinc, tissue levels of magnesium, versus all of these blood tests that people are wasting their money on. I'll do a few more questions here before I wrap it up and get back to all the endless projects here on my acreage. Someone asks about my grounding sheets. More info on them. They are amazing. So I started grounding while I sleep back in 2010, shortly after I got into raw veganism. I had my dad crawl in the basement of my childhood home and put a grounding rod in the dirt and run the wire up through the ground. And I've been sleeping grounded since then, for the most part, with some breaks with using the Magnetico sleep pad. And I've gotten a lot of questions about that over the years because I stopped using the Magnetico. I still have it in storage, and it's a great product. I have the 20 Gauss. It's really heavy, I think 400 pounds or something crazy. That's great if you're in a high-rise apartment in Miami or an apartment in Los Angeles. Basically, any population-dense city with a lot of dirty electricity everywhere and voltage in the ground, which is a big deal. If you're rural or somewhat rural like myself, I really don't think that you have to worry about voltage in the wiring in your bedroom. You can use a body voltage meter and different EMF meters and get really scientific and heady with it. Or what I would recommend is get a grounding sheet, get the grounding rod, try it, and just see how you feel with a sleep tracker or without a sleep tracker. If you don't sleep well, if you sleep worse, ditch the grounding sheet. It's really that simple. Instead of hiring a building biologist or listening to hours and hours of podcasts trying to figure it out, all the little nuances of voltage and the electrical wiring in your walls, getting onto the silver threading and channeling that into your body, even though it's going into the ground, it's still going through your body. It just gets very heady and, to me, neurotic. And to me, it kind of shows weakness in people, because if you have significant amounts of magnesium and zinc in your body, you're taking melatonin, you're taking vitamin C, you're taking vitamin E, all of these basic nutrients that we should be supplementing anyway, you should be impervious. You should be immune to EMFs. You should not feel bad when you drive in a Tesla car. There's a lot of sensationalism out there. And yes, we do what we can. If you're in a permanent spot, you own the property, you own the home, go crazy. Put a kill switch in, put a dirty electricity whole home filter in, go wild. But in the meantime, don't drive yourself crazy and just do what you can and make incremental changes. And sometimes just going by how you feel is the best. It's definitely the most affordable without having to measure all this stuff and get really complex with it. If you're sleeping better with the grounding sheet, rod to earth, keep doing it. That is awesome. And that's my experience with it. Maybe it's because I live in the mountains. I am on grid, so there is going to be some voltage in the earth, because that's what happens. The electricity doesn't go through insulated wire back to the substation. It actually radiates through the earth. And because the earth is conductive and there's moisture, it's going to travel a fair distance. But do I stay up at night thinking about that, worrying? No, I sleep grounded and I sleep great. Lately, the reason why I haven't been sleeping well is the noise pollution. I think that is more of an issue than EMFs. And for some people, as I mentioned, white noise helps, brown noise, pink noise. There's always different types of noise, or earplugs. I don't like having stuff in my ears, like over the ear headphones. But noise pollution, sound pollution, to me, that's a much bigger deal and really harder to mitigate than EMFs. We're approaching spring here, and I'll be wearing more grounded footwear. I know when it's super hot, which for me is really anything above 70 Fahrenheit, I'll be wearing my Earth Runner sandals around a lot. But to summarize, I really think the fear around grounding with products, whether it's footwear or bedding, silver embedded grounding sheets, the people saying that you're picking up stray voltage, even if you're going rod to earth, because there's voltage in the ground itself, especially in major cities. I just go back to vitamin C, vitamin E, magnesium, zinc, melatonin. Those are my top 5 nutrients for EMFs that I've spoken about quite a bit. And if you're supplementing all of those, I really think you're protected, and the research supports that you are protected at a cellular mitochondrial level, not just from the oxidative stress, which is a big part of it, the increased oxidative stress from EMFs, but also the voltage gated calcium channels opening. So having enough magnesium will block that. And there's all of these various mechanisms. And I think people simplify these supplements that they're only protecting from the oxidative stress effects of EMF. And the fact is, they go far beyond that. They're protecting the cell in several different ways, stabilizing the redox potential, which vitamin C does, ascorbic acid does that, as well as melatonin. You have zinc that protects from the damaging effects of lipid peroxidation. There's several studies on that. Just search zinc supplementation, electromagnetic fields, lipid peroxidation, and you'll see all of the studies pop up. And like I've often said, all these supplements work together. So vitamin E also protects against lipid peroxidation. So having vitamin E and zinc fully protects you from increased lipid peroxidation induced by EMR, electromagnetic radiation. So that's my thoughts on grounding. It's a natural blood thinner. It prevents rouleau or clumping of the red blood cells, which can help everyone out because you get more nutrients into the cells and better toxin removal. I would not be convinced by the biohackers talking about how you absolutely need to have your house set up with a kill switch or turning off the breaker in your bedroom before you ground. Otherwise, it's going to cause harm, and you're basically making your body an antenna for those electric fields. Even if that's true, I'm fine with that because I'm grounded. So it's actually going into the earth, and I have all the nutrients, and I'm supplementing daily. These are actually really affordable supplements, especially vitamin C, E, and melatonin. Very affordable. So we're not talking about hundreds of dollars per month. And I personally stockpile these. And I know a lot of people that purchase my Mitolife products do the same. Whenever there's a sale, they'll just stock up and get 6 months supply, a year supply, whatever. And that's really how I do it with all of my supplements. That is wise to do in today's world with politics and all the craziness going on. Now we have tariffs and who knows what's going to happen. So it's always a good idea to stockpile and purchase a ton of supplements at once. And some listeners might say, well, I can't ground rod to earth. Would you still recommend grounding to the third prong on the wall? And this is where it really triggers the hardcore biohackers because there is a higher chance of picking up stray voltage, especially if the house or the apartment or whatever is not wired properly. then if you're grounding to the third prong in the wall outlet, there really is a higher chance to pick up voltage onto that ground and channel that into your body. But to that, I still say it might be worth it. Back to the beginning of my answer. Experiment, try it out. If you sleep horribly, you could just take a nap and lesson learned, but it's worth trying to see if it improves your sleep. I really think that's the best thing to go by instead of just listening to all of these posts and influencers and biohackers talk about why you shouldn't ground. Just try it in your very specific situation that's different from anyone else, because we all have a different environment, and see how you feel. And if you feel better, keep doing it. So I'm going to wrap it up. I was trying to get through more questions. I will save the ones that people sent in because there were probably, I don't know, 60 questions that listeners sent in, maybe 80 from Instagram. I will answer this last question by my friend John. He said, how's training going? So it's going great. I was using the resistance bands from X3 for a while, which are awesome. I'm really about preventing injury. I used to do deadlifts with the hex bar back in my raw vegan days on the almond raw protocol. Those that have been following me for a while, you might remember I was doing a really extreme experiment, fasting 23 hours a day, had a 1 or 2 hour eating window. I think it was about 2 hours because it was impossible to eat all the food in an hour. And I was ripped, and I was on basically a bean and a soy diet with isolated amino acids and a really labor intensive shake that I would make myself, hand blending all of the protein together and downing it with soy milk that I would actually make myself. Really extreme fringe protocol, but I got absolutely shredded. I was really ripped. I still have pictures of me back then, and I'd like to get back there, maybe not to that level, but somewhere close to that. And I'm back to using adaptive resistance. Instead of bands, I'm using cables with a 2 horsepower engine. Some of you guys might be familiar with the ARX Fit. It's at some high-end clinics out there, and I'm just blown away. My first session, it took me almost a week to recover because it's just a different way of working out. It's 100% efficiency. I'm a big fan of always improving things and doing things better. I think we get stuck in tradition, and sometimes that doesn't serve us. So I do think there's a better way to strength train, a safer way, more effective way, more efficient way. And that's with cables, and where on the concentric and the eccentric phase of the workout, you're actually getting full fatigue of the muscle throughout the entire range of motion, instead of with traditional lifting 50% of the time, you're actually not fatiguing the muscle, and it's more like a relaxation phase. And that's why, I mean, I'm still wrapping my head around this. I'm no expert. I have a lot of gym friends, a lot of kettlebell friends. You know, this becomes religious where people defend free weights and been doing it forever and blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to argue, but I'm definitely more into longevity. If I had to pick between being an athlete that dies sooner on TRT or human growth hormone, you know, a lot of guys are going that route. I definitely don't want to go down that route. I would more go for the longevity route and extend my life and be functional at a really old age. That's the direction that I would like to go, and really avoid injury and reduce the chance of injury to almost 0%. I think that's quite possible with this style of workout. So really excited to see how I look by the end of the summer. I'm staying consistent with it. And of course, taking all the Mitolife supplements, but also supplementing essential amino acids. I like Fortigen. That's my favorite one. Favorite EAA product from John Jaquish. The mango one, the pina colada one, I'm pretty much just alternating those two. The pina colada one has glucose, 20 grams per serving, and the mango flavor, which I just like that of all his flavors, that one just tastes really good. And so I'll have usually one of each per day, and I'll have 3 eggs in the morning with sourdough, espresso shot. And then midday, I've been having soft boiled eggs because I'm so busy. Usually have that with a salad, and that's like my quick lunch. I'll have 3 or 4 soft boiled eggs, salad from my garden with apple cider vinegar, olive oil, and sea salt. I've just been trying to figure out how to get more calories in because I'm so busy juggling so many things, essentially 2 businesses, Mitolife, and then a whole team of people here building out this mountain with the ultimate intention to sell produce, sell animal foods, basically produce food and host retreats here and trainings and things. So it's just a lot of running around and not a lot of time to prep food. So I'm definitely doing it bachelor style, probably in a slight calorie deficit, but I'm making sure that I get sufficient protein and sugar every day. That's really the focus. So I'm going to end the rant here. If you want to check out my website, it's matt-blackburn.com. You could see all of my recommended products, all nicely organized there. There's the Earth Runner sandals that I mentioned. They're called circadian sandals, really comfortable. My favorite thing to wear on my feet when it's super hot outside. And all of the other products that I recommend, most of which have discount codes. I have really been enjoying the Raw Optics Blue Sync glasses. I wear those when I'm driving, and they definitely help me feel alert, and my eyes just feel better not getting blasted with excess UV, especially on long drives. Because my drives up here are usually minimum 2 hours round trip because everything's spread out here in North Idaho. And I find I feel a lot more energized wearing Matt Maruka's Blue Sync while I'm driving. Really interesting effect. And then my brand is Mitolife. You can find that at mitolife.co. There's a new product out. It's called Potency. So it used to be just oyster alone. Green-lipped mussel was added to it. I've been really loving the product myself. It's definitely a stronger effect than just taking oyster extract by itself. Highly recommend giving it a try, especially if you deal with fatigue or chronic fatigue, as it's called. I've definitely noticed an energy boost with that one. And definitely don't miss the surplus sale. If you click shop and then go down to surplus, a lot of the products are on sale with the best by date approaching. So it's actually a good time to experiment with megadosing, whether it's zinc or vitamin C or jellyfish or encephalon or elk velvet antler. All of those right now are on surplus. And even my favorite product, the melatonin. So you can get the 50 milligram capsules for just $10 a bottle for 60 capsules. So if you've heard some of my protocols, you want to try high dosing some of these things, lithium's on there. Now is a great chance to try them out. So check me out on Instagram. It's Matt Blackburn. There's Mitolife on Instagram. A lot of free information between those 2 pages. I like going really heavy on the information and as light as I possibly can on the marketing. Almost too light. A lot of people don't even know that I have a product line, I think. So that is all for today. I might see you guys next Friday if I don't start taking breaks. I am adding an intake form on my website that should be up on the Matt Blackburn website, I believe. If you'd like to be on a guest on the show, then you could submit a form and you'll be considered as a potential podcast guest. I've been saying it lately. I've honestly been having trouble finding unique guests because I handpick them. I'm very picky. I don't like to only talk about emotional and mental stuff. I like to really focus in on the physical, the biochemistry as much as possible. It doesn't have to be citing studies the whole episode, but really just focusing in on physical health because I really do think that's where it all starts. So look out for that if you'd like to be a guest on Rogue State of Mind. And I will see you next time. Stay rogue.